I used to run this after-school program on emotional intelligence for children who were in the age group of maybe 5 to 7 years. And our theme for that month was anger. And in this one particular session, I was explaining to the kids that how anger has this varied range, where at one it would show up as being perturbed, and then it would move on to irritation, to annoyance, to anger, and then rage. And as I was explaining the scale to children, one of the kids raised his hand. And I looked at him and I gave him a nod to speak what he had to say. So he said that, you know, Anisha, for me, I never feel anything that's one. I directly only feel rage. And when he said that, there were tears welled up in his eyes. And the moment he said that, all the other kids started laughing. And this particular child had a history of being known as an aggressive child, and his parents had often got complaints from school for him being angry and displaying aggressive episodes. So the moment everybody started laughing, he got angry and he started throwing things at the other kids and he started kicking them. I asked him to stop, but he just wouldn't stop. So at one point in time, I just lifted him up and I walked out of the room, and my colleague was attending to the other kids. And I remember when I held him, he was constantly kicking me and yelling and shouting. After some time, I lost my balance and we both fell on the ground. And I remember at that time, I had to kind of fold his hands and put his legs between my legs. I had to really hold him in a tight grip because he was hurting me. And he kept yelling, "Leave me, leave me." And I remember I was just whispering in his ears, very gently, "Bacha, I know you're really angry, and I also don't like holding you like that right now. But I'm afraid that you're going to hurt yourself and you're going to hurt others and you won't like yourself. And I really, really want to hear about your anger. Can you please slow down?" And I kept repeating that in his ears till I could feel there was this moment when I felt that his body had loosened. So even I loosened my grip, and then he still kept talking at me. So when my colleague came out to check on us, she saw that this little lad who I had held with his head facing towards the others, he had now turned around and he was hugging me tightly and he was crying in my arms. And he kept telling me that, "Anisha, I'm just so embarrassed about being so angry. I don't like it when people tease me as an angry child, and I just get so easily provoked that I feel very helpless." And as I held him in my arms, and I know that just looking at the child's helplessness, I had tears flowing through my eyes. And then as I was able to help him soothe himself, he was able to think of some requests that he had of the other children so that he could be supported in dealing with his anger. And he came into the classroom and he spoke to the other kids, and all the other kids were very understanding. They all hugged and also said sorry to him. So I'm sure when you hear this story, you all would possibly think that, yeah, that's the way a kid should be handled. Sometimes kids need us as caretakers, as adults, as parents to help them regulate themselves, isn't it? And we kind of consider it very normal for kids to get troubled. And yet, when we go into the adult world and when we see somebody who's an adult is troubled or is having an emotional breakdown, our expectation is that they should be able to manage themselves. And surely there's validity to that, because part of adulting is that we learn to be responsible for our own feelings, we learn to be responsible for our own behavior. And while we all eventually grow up one day, we all become adults, and yet there is this little one in each one of us that may feel triggered, that may feel incapable of regulating his or her own emotions. And I wonder what stops us from reaching out to people who seem to be triggered. Why do we leave them alone? What stops us from letting them lean into our energy so that we can help them co-regulate? What also stops us when we are triggered to lean into others? Why don't we ask for help? Because I do believe that at the end of it, we as humans are so interdependent, and our emotions sometimes just yearn to be met by an empathic another.